Hi, I'm Jordan, welcome back. So I made a previous video entitled Awakened Virility, how to reignite the passion and the vital energy in your own body, in your own system. And in that video I made a big philosophical view, and today what I want to do is run you through the 4 specific steps that I use both in me and that I've come to develop over the last 10 years of client work to help other men also wake up the very sexual, virile, creative, erotic, passionate aspect of their being. So just to give a review of the introduction, when it comes to passion, which is what we're working with here, it's a very forgotten aspect of our bodies and body, minds and emotional circuitry and our general energy. If you go to most spiritual teachers and spiritual paths or most personal development workshops, there's a lot of work on mindfulness, awareness, awakening of the mind. You might run into a lot of awakening of the heart, emotional intelligence, compassion, empathy training, and so on. But when it comes to find your passion, or this much fetishized, if only I was fully self-expressed like some of these celebrities out there, I would love to live a passionate life, there are less answers for that. And certainly the find your passion one, it's like, well, why don't you go out into the world and find it somewhere, as if you're going to run into your passion one day in some foreign country while you're waiting for a bus. I think that can happen to people, but it's a much more predictable, sustainable and realistic path to actually consider what is the nature of passion and how does it actually originate from the inside of us, right? And so I believe that the very particular quality of life force which originates in our hips, our pelvis, our genitalia, our guts, this whole area which makes up the seat of our body, the energy, the life force that comes through that is the spiritual version of passion. And I take great pains to call it a virtue of passion, because a lot of people think, well, if I release my sexuality and my erotic nature, then I might run wild. Well, actually, no. Some people do for a time, but once you learn how to harness that and ride the horse of your own sexual, creative energy, then that can lighten up. It infuses itself into more of your body. You get to transmute and use a lot of that vital force for your work, your leadership, your influence in the world, relating with your partner, even if it's not a sexual or a flirtatious moment. So let's run into the 4 approaches that I use to awaken the virtue of passion in myself and in the people that I work with. And before we go further, I'll just say these 4 practices are integral, integrated, and ongoing. So it's not like this is a one and done, train for it like a marathon and then it's unlocked for the rest of your life. You can do a lot of healing and unlocking work in an intensive period of time, but ideally the practices that I talk about, they go on and they become integrated parts of your life, of your weekly or monthly schedule. So the first approach, if you really want to awaken the quality of passion from within your own body, the first approach is to have a daily bottom-up body practice. A daily bottom-up body practice. So I'll break that down. When I say bottom-up, what I refer to there is that you don't need any particular understanding or insight about any blockages or any notion of passion when you begin. You simply go through the mechanics and the instructions of the practices, and then energy will move inside of you. So any insight or understanding that you want to get about the healing of certain blockages or the nature of your awakened virility, that will come from the practice itself. So there's nothing you need to understand. You just plunge in with your body, follow the instructions, and do the practice. What are the practices? I use a few different things, a little bit from the worlds of yoga, a little bit from the world of qigong, and quite a few different things from the world of Reikian psychotherapy. So a lot of the main body-based psychotherapy that's out there in the world, there are some very, very powerful tools to twist, to stretch, to access musculature, which is usually not felt and not accessed in the body, but musculature which stores a lot of energy. And so by opening and stretching the body in particular ways, and I'm talking really about this region of the pelvis and the hips right now, you start to ease open these areas of your body, like you're easing open the rusty metal wiring of a cage. Hasn't been touched for a long time, but you gently ease into that, you feel it, you hold some of these poses, and a lot of the energy that's been trapped inside that cage starts to break off like sediment and starts to run and starts to move. So it's a really interesting phenomena when you do this kind of thing. And so that's the first approach, starting with the more coarse aspects of tight muscles. And as we go deeper, I introduce breath work. Breath work is wonderful because you get to work with this new sediment that comes floating off, this new life force that's been liberated from the stretch. And through your breath, you get to deepen your contact with the life force, expand it, find new little places within you that hold more, further reservoirs of energy. And importantly, because you are the one controlling your breath, you are the one who gets to control the emotional and energetic flow of this energy as it gets released. And what's really important with that, of course, is that you get to sit on the horse, riding the horse all the way through your process. It's not like there's a huge opening like a volcano or a geyser that spurts energy out and you're just, watching your body go through a crazy transformation, but one that you're not in control of. No, I actually work very methodically with breath work so you can start to steer and move the energy through you as you release. The third body practice I work with a lot is called non-linear movement, and I've got some beautiful adaptations of the method where you, again, without breath this time, but with a lot more subtlety and awareness, you can continue to move the energy through your body. Something really beautiful when I'm working with non-linear is that a lot of this energy that originated in the hips and the pelvis, that erotic force, now I can move it up into my belly, up into my heart, up into my face, which changes the way that my face looks, into my arms and my hands, and that energy spreads throughout my entire being. The reason why so many of us actually feel frustrated or uncomfortable when we have a lot of passionate energy is because it gets locked in to the area of our hips and pelvis. It doesn't get to travel around our whole body. And the more that the energy moves through the whole body, it's like, okay, it's not an irritation or a frustration. This energy doesn't need to go somewhere. I can actually enjoy it and become filled up with this energy. And so the last step when it comes to bottom-up daily body practice is meditation. And at the end of a good session, I'll invite you to sit there and just meditate. And if you're a beginner, that might feel like relaxing and allowing the energy to just kind of calm down and bring you back to normal so you can go out and get on with your life. But if you've been practicing a little while, you can hold a meditation posture and really witness the ongoing process of what you've already started. You can sit for 15-20 minutes in meditation and witness that even more energy is being released, is moving through your body and is integrating. So in this section of embodiment practice, you could add in a little bit of body work, like body-based psychotherapy, where an expert is helping you through this process to take you to deeper places. You could also throw in a couple of different forms of tantric massage, but you have to be very, very careful that you're working with a tantric body worker who has no real knowledge of armoring bands and energy flow. Make sure that the tantric massage that you're looking up is not just a euphemism for an oil rub and a happy ending. That way, you're going to get more than a pleasurable couple of hours. You're actually going to get sustained release that adds up and helps your overall practice. Approach number 2. So the first one was a bottom-up, body-based daily practice. The second approach is a top-down, awareness-based inquiry. And so with top-down, you are leading with your mind. And awareness is curative. It's widely known. And so the patterns in your life that you are aware of, you can start to gain the capacity to change. So through asking very good questions and through observing your patterns unfold in day-to-day life, you start to get more information about how they work. So say you're a detective and you have to solve a case, the case of why your passion is trapped, particularly when a beautiful woman walks into the room, or why after 5 years of relationship you just don't have the spark that you had at the beginning. Why is that? Well, patterns come into place, right? Whatever it is, you might be withholding some kind of resentment. You just might be in a state of familiarity with each other where you've forgotten this sense of mystery. And so our pattern ways of showing up are automatic and we don't think about them anymore because we're getting on with new challenges in our life. But what if you devote a little bit of your daily awareness to try and observe yourself in different situations? You ask the right questions and you can start uncovering the iceberg of your patterns, right? You might just be aware of the tip right now, but at some point you can see not just the relational dynamics with other people or the thoughts that go through your head, but you can also start to notice how your body starts to react and tighten up in different places as these patterns play out. And the really obvious example is here. A really attractive woman walks into the room and her energy impacts you, and all of a sudden like the guts close up like this, let's say. Well, that's part of the pattern. You might do certain things from there, you might say certain things from there, you might just walk out the room to avoid all of the discomfort. All of those different things added together make up the wholeness of the pattern. But once you've got the embodied response that happens when the pattern is triggered, then you've got something you can start to work with. So all top-down mind-based work is, in a sense, shadow work, and you're a detective trying to uncover the deep structure of what actually happens in your entire body-mind system when this particular trigger happens. And once you can work out enough of the case, it gets solved. So once you get enough clues and you have complete awareness and observation of what happens, then you can see the trigger happen, you can feel the clench in the body happen, you can take a deep breath and you can let it go. Or you can say what needs to be said to the person in question, or you can have that hard conversation of the resentment that feels difficult for you to speak about. You can address the pattern through conscious decision and action. So having a practice that is going to sustain you in this is very important. And I think to have a guide or an online course, or at least a really good list of questions that you can journal upon every day, and an occasional check-in with a mentor or a coach, they're going to give you fuel for inquiry. So all top-down ways to embodying your passion comes from inquiry. And of course, rather than asking yourself the question, why don't I have any passion? How can I get more passion? Your questions become a lot more sharp when you work with inquiry. And I'd be asking things like, where do you most lose contact with your fundamental passion during your weekly life? Watch out for that, make observations and write them down in your diary. Around which people do you lose access to your passionate range of expression? When one of those people comes into the room or sends you a text message, what is the first thing that happens in your body? So you see, we start to get laser sharp with our questions, and therefore with the things that we focus on as a way to uncover more of the pattern. Third approach, so to recap, bottom-up, body-based daily practice, a top-down, awareness-based inquiry. The third approach I use is one of simply holding space. And I think there's little more important than deep, full-bodied listening from somebody who accepts the wholeness of your process. Listening is incredibly powerful. In fact, the more still the listener's mind and the more complete their engagement, I actually find that inner process continues to cycle through within me. So I feel really well listened to, energy moves. It's actually the same mechanism that we teach with sexual polarity. So the more still and calm and vibrant the masculine presence is, the more the feminine in your feminine partner feels just compelled to move and expand. So listening's powerful. And you could get this from a friend that you trust, a brother on the path. You could get it from a coach or a therapist, a practice partner. And what's important here is any of the process that you're experiencing through your bottom-up practice, new energies, new areas of your body that are coming into awareness, interesting phenomena, emotions that come up through your practice. Well, it's really nice just to speak these to a pure listening post. And the more that you get to share them, the more that you get to actually continue your process cycling through, and more stuff happens. So the process keeps going, and as you're talking to someone with great listening, you feel yourself in connection with another person, and you feel yourself in connection with yourself at the same time. Really, really, really being listened to helps us deepen our self-contact in a really, really powerful way, and learn how to be grounded in the midst of quite powerful or quite volatile emotions. This is the power of it. The other aspect is, as you're doing more top-down, kind of awareness-based inquiry into your patterns, you can discover things that are difficult, right? Truths, urges, patterns of behavior that might bring up a sense of shame or grief or sorrow. And so it's really nice to be able to speak what you're discovering also in your mind to somebody who's listening to you. And I think you can do a lot of self-inner work, but if you don't have the power of that reflection coming back to you, so much gets missed. So this is a really, really vital step, not to be on the path alone, and to sit in the luxury of holding space, having that space held for your process, and learning yourself to be a pure space for other people's process as well. And the fourth and final approach is learning how to wield your passionate, virile energy in the real world with artistry. And for that, feedback is necessary. So imagine this, you've been doing really, really powerful body practices that unlock a tremendous hidden reservoir of energy which is now coursing all the way through you. Imagine that you've been able to notice 3 or 4 really, really strong patterns that have gripped you for a long period of time. You've started to let them go, and energy just comes through you more and more during your day. And you're being supported by other people to keep this practice going. It can be absolutely revolutionary, like to the point of changing the whole constitution of your body, therefore your body language, the way that people feel energy as your energy as you walk into a room. Some people would use the word aura. It's like your aura changes. And perhaps having been maybe like a top-heavy, charming kind of nice guy, or maybe even a bit of a quiet introvert, all of a sudden there's this great force of energy coming through your pelvis and filling up the room as a potent sexual presence. That's going to affect everybody around you. And you can have all kinds of quality problems. Women being attracted and making themselves very available to you, throwing themselves at you, which can be fun, and it can be extremely problematic. You might encounter jealousy also, and projection. People see you and feel you in a certain way, make up a story about who you are, and not see you really through clear eyes. So you might get some of that also happening. And what changes, people have long said that there have been psychological studies that say that 7% of our communication is what we say, but 93% of communication is made up by our body language and our tonality. And so by doing this kind of inner passion work, you change the composition of your body and your body language, and you change everything about your tonality. So even if you say the same things that you might have said a few months in the past, all of a sudden 93% of your communication has altered. So think about the implications for that. When you're giving a meeting at work, when you're meeting a woman for a first date, when you're just coming back into your household with your wife and your children, you're becoming more and more of a different man. And you might find that energetically powerful things are happening around you, and you might feel that a lot of the old ways that you had of interacting with people simply don't work. So take flirting, for example. If you're now, you've got this rocket fuel surging through you, do your old ways of flirting now seem relevant, or do they seem a little bit silly? Can you actually achieve more connection and intimacy with somebody else by doing less? And in general, a lot of the overcompensation that people make, certainly I used to make, I would have a lot of different ways of trying to charm people in order to stay in the conversation. Well, a lot of the old ways of being are not relevant anymore because I have a very different presence. So learning how to wield your new power can be quite strange. It's very important to get practice. And so in a professional or leadership context, you want to make sure that you've got people who are around you who can reflect back to you how you're showing up and the difference this is making. And in a intimacy and attraction and a dating context, women, if you're a man, of course, women's feedback is the most crucial thing in the world, because she's going to tell you, when does your passion feel good and upright and self-contained and vibrant and like a gift? When does your passion maybe feel a little bit overextended, maybe a little bit invasive, like it's trying to do something or subtly trying to take? You might feel shy with spontaneous attraction happening from time to time with a woman. How do you work with shyness? Not eradicate, but work with it, because it's such a beautiful connective force. And how do you just bring your approach to other people with a sense of artistry? And so an ongoing process where you can try things out and get adjustments from people who are deeply honest and who deeply care that you integrate in a good way is one of the most vital things in the world. And in fact, we live, I think, our entire lives without having authentic attunement coming back to us from the world. Most people are just saying niceties, stuck in really social conformist modes of talking with each other, so that just saying, hey, you know, something I liked about you from this first date, this is what I felt in your energy, in my first impression from you, do you want to hear it? Like being generous enough to give those invitations to other people and have those frank developmental conversations, let's say, are exceedingly rare. So if you have an opportunity to practice like that, it's really worth taking it. All right, so where do we go from here? There are many, many different steps. And in fact, I will link to a bonus practice in the comments below. So you can start with some of this bottom-up, embodied daily practice that's going to move and open some of these closed off, like rarely contacted pelvis and hip areas of your body's musculature, and start to release some of that energy. If you want the full range of practices that I use, then they're available in a program I have called Lover, Outlaw, Trickster, Magician. This is a men's program. It's an archetypal exploration, and it gives a comprehensive introduction to embodiment, and it includes all of the processes that I use in my client work and that you will need for bottom-up and top-down exploration. And then if you want the final piece, which is to be in connection with fellow men and beautiful, honest, heartfelt women who are at your service to give you real reflection for where your energy's at and how to incorporate it in a more elegant way, I have a series of retreats coming up. A link to my events calendar, again, is below. And we have a really beautiful group retreat where we take 6 men for 4 days here close to my home in Bali, and we run through all these 4 pillars of practice together, deep out in the jungle, in a private space, training long, extended, bottom-up processes of emotional and energetic release and integration with all the methods I talked about. We also have shadow work and feedback, and you'll get my coaching so you can go really deep into some of the harder to get to patterns. We're going to be holding space for each other, continuing our process of plenty, and like I mentioned, the team of women will help you get in the saddle of your virile passion, so you really know how to ride that in relationship with finesse. All right, I've been Jordan. Subscribe to the channel. My writing is on Substack, and I'll see you in the next video.